Today, we have a special episode with 3 former members of the Green Party who recently wrote an open letter about their mistreatment by co-leaders Marama Davidson, Chloe Swarbrick, and other party members. They describe how their cultural and personal well-being was hurt and ignored by the Green Party leaders, especially during the passing of Fa'anana Efeso Collins. Alofa Aiono, a co-convener of the Pasifika Green's Lived Experience Network, had just lost a close friend and co-worker, but this was not acknowledged by its co-leaders. The issues with the Pasifika Greens started with the poor treatment of Professor Elizabeth Kerekere, who had provided important support to the Pasifika Greens, but was unfairly attacked by some senior staff and MPs, including its co-leaders. The recent mistreatment of MP Darleen Tana, who also faced bullying, reopened old wounds from their experiences with Fa'anana and Elizabeth Kerekere. Marama Davidson and Chloe Swarbrick's action were seen as exploiting racial stereotypes in the media. Before we start, e mua lava na ave le whaafetai ma le tapua I le tātou te mairunga le langi, ma lo lava le soifo ma le langi mama, tālofa lava. I warmly welcome Marie, Alofa and Vasemaca, who wrote the open letter on behalf of the Pasifika Greens. Thank you for coming on to Breaking Waves to share your experiences. We appreciate that you've trusted to speak with us despite other media requests. How are you all this afternoon? And please introduce yourselves.
Forgive me, aroha mai, Hana. I'm old, so I've got a wee bit of, not a brief introduction. Vinaka vakalevu, malo whawhitai, malo le avanua. Thanks heaps, Breaking Waves, for this opportunity. Ko Samo me tonga ka wahi o okutupuna, ko whaamoe lu whaalo I vala Laufiso ka whānau. I'm the firstborn of 8 Samoans with a Tongan great-grandmother born here in Otipoti during the 1960s and 70s. Brockville is our nu'u. That's where our family home is and where I still live. I'm very privileged to be the Greens' first Pasifika elected member and a third-term councillor with the Dunedin City Council. In late 2015, the Dunedin Green Party branch asked a number of us Brockville peeps to consider running for the 2016 local body elections. The Greens felt that having a voice to represent the lived experiences of Brockville, whānau, and other like suburbs at the council table was important. In the end, I was the only one available and interested, so although I was a mana supporter, I joined the Green Party. Because of our valued Polynesian practice of reciprocity, once I was a Green elected member, I gave back to the branch for their tautoko and for supporting my election, and the Deep South Province as well by assuming responsibility for such roles as branch secretary, branch co-convener, province co-convener, and at a national level I was an exec member as well as local government caucus co-convener and secretary, of course, of the Pasifika Lived Experience Network. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I'm feeling good. I'm tired, but we keep on soldiering on, because our people deserve that. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much. And can we go to Alofa, please?
Yeah. Thanks for that, sister. I too am old. And yeah, so talofa lava, my name is Alofa Aiono, born and bred in Cannons Creek, Porirua, but have been living now here in Turanganui, Kiwa, Gisborne, with my wife Elizabeth Kerekere, and I worked it out. This is my 15th year here in Gizzy, and I'm the youngest of 7 children to my late parents, Tui Savalalo Aiono from Whasiko and my late mother, Lina Lauafo Aiono from the beautiful Southside Island village of Luatuanu. And yeah, mum and dad met in Wellington, and basically we're foundation Pasifika family of Porirua, and proud to say that the homestead is still ours. It's the one house that I was born and raised in Cannons Creek. And so, yeah, rooted in community down there in Porirua, but now doing mahi here in Gizzy. My time with the Green Party, my family were staunch Labour supporters, probably very similar to many Pasifika whānau. And I blindly just gave my vote to Labour because that's what mum and dad did. And it wasn't until I met my wife, we celebrated 32 years this year, that she actually got me thinking about why I give my vote to a particular party. And so, yeah, I had a look, and similar to Marie, the values that the Green Party professed aligned with mine. And because that's where my wife was going, I wanted to support her as well. I thought, yep, throw my weight behind the Green Party. And because we come from a culture of service, it's not just join and sit there and do nothing. My service to the Green Party probably is not as in-depth as Marie's, but since joining, I became the co-convener of the Pasifika Greens network. We were small, but we were determined to actually grow our membership and to make the Green Party look a lot more visible in terms of when you see the Green Party membership, that we could see ourselves. So I joined in 2016 and basically have held that role of co-convener since, because big sister over there, Marie, said, yep, we need to keep going, and you're it. So also was involved in some other stuff with policy, sort of like on a side hustle, and recently an international committee within the Greens, but due to my resignation, I was pretty fastly chopped from that. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Alofa, for sharing that with us. Now we'll move over to Vasemaca.
Vacemaca, my name is Vasemaca, formerly known as Emma, Tavola. I have paternal connections to Javuni in Kandavu in Fiji, and maternally my mother is a fourth generation Pākehā in New Zealand. And I've been here in South Auckland since I was 19 years old. I came here to study, now 23 years deep in this work and in this space. There's something about Otara keeps me centered to this space. So I'm a mum. Professionally, I have worked as an arts manager and curator for my entire career, but I'm shifting into centering my art practice. So I joined the Greens in 2017. Materia felt like a leader that resonated with me. So I left the Labour Party and I joined the Greens, and I didn't get very involved other than wearing the t-shirt and voting until we started activating the Pasifika Greens in what is termed the Lived Experience Network. So I also stepped up into a service role in South Auckland. We have a South Auckland branch, and I have at 2 times been nominated to be a co-convener of the South Auckland branch, and resigned from that role the week that Efeso died. So I have now resigned from the party as well, and that is where we have arrived at.
Thank you so much, Vasemaca, for sharing that with us. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate this so much. So the first question I wanted to ask was that this letter points out the mistreatment of Professor Elizabeth Kerekere. Marie, from your perspective, what poor treatment did Elizabeth receive from the Green Party leadership, and how did it affect you personally?
To contextualize my answer, I need to say that Elizabeth's whānau and mine have known each other for decades. We grew up together we've known each other since the late 70s, really, here in Otipoti, Dunedin. And although, and before Elizabeth left Otipoti, we collaborated on a number of projects. We were members of the one of the few young Pasifika branches of Dunedin, and we worked heaps on Otipoti youth, trying to get a voice for youth across all sectors, including boot boys and boot girls, etc. And so when, although Elizabeth and her siblings have left Otipoti and live elsewhere in the Motu, we're still in touch with their mother Erin, who still lives here. So, and then looking at the Green Party stuff, I think having been at 2 AGMs now since Elizabeth resigned, it's so weird to me that they do this amazing damage and destruction of people's reputation, and they just move on, and there's absolutely no mention of politicians such as Elizabeth, even though despite the huge contribution she's made to the party in all sorts of different ways. So that personally affected me. It just blows my mind that you can do this damage to someone and then you don't even mention them at your gatherings. So I think that people in the party tend to forget. For me, there's a distinction between our letter, because we're not attacking the grassroots and flax roots of the membership. We're actually challenging the co-leaders and the caucus. But people seem to forget. We never forget, of course. But Elizabeth was 4th ranked in the candidate selection list, and then the powers that be immediately saw this mistake, sending that message to the wrong chat. Immediately took advantage of it to get rid of her. So, yeah, hence our open letter. And I think I'm not sure about the other two, but I would have resigned if Vessel was not in the running. I would have resigned then. So that's my answer. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if the other two want to add anything.
Yep, Alofa and Vasemaca, you're open to add to that as well?
Yeah, I definitely, we all wanted to resign, but we stayed because of Efeso, and we stayed because of that work, and we're encouraged to stay by Elizabeth. You know, the Green Party kaupapa is bigger than the party politics. We all joined the party for much bigger reasons than individuals, but it was hard to stay after seeing how Elizabeth was treated.
Yeah, and definitely hard. I wanted to resign ASAP because of what would happen, very personal, because it's what was happening to my wife. And still stayed for the greater good, and I'm glad Vasemaca said that. We stayed because Elizabeth told us to. Because we needed to support Efeso. And some other ones on that list who we thought were worthy of our support. But the main reason was the brother. He was a connector for Pasifika people that, and it was Elizabeth that approached Fa'anana and basically said, hey, how about the Greens being a vehicle? Because it was bigger than political alignment. It's, so, it was hard. I'm glad Marie said about the AGMs. I attended AGM along with Fa'anana and Marie, the previous AGM, when that stuff happened to my wife. It was freaking hard. But we went there. And I actually remember asking the question to the leaders, which they pretty much fobbed off. I said, how do we encourage our voters who voted for the first time Green, i.e. my family, when after the treatment that was demonstrated, to Elizabeth? And I can't even remember their stink answer, but yeah. So yeah, very, very hard. But as Vasemaca and Marie said, it was a bigger kaupapa. Elizabeth saw the bigger picture that we needed to get good people into that place.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And, I read the article myself, and Elizabeth Kerekere sent a wrong message to the wrong group chat, right? And the way the leaders, these are leaders of a party who have the support of hundreds and thousands of people, responded to that and actually had the confidence to address it publicly with these journalists. It's very intentional. And as a viewer, I'm seeing this as there must have been things happening before, because you don't just say, oh, wrong message, I'm going to go tell the whole world about it. What is there? any more context to this that you guys would like to share? If not, I'm totally fine with that, but I'm leaving the question to you guys.
Yes, there's heaps of background.
You are exactly
And
right.
we'll leave it at that.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Okay, I'm super fine with that. But I know that no one would just wake up and, you know, there's a lot of context for this.
And I think Marie hit it on the head too. Elizabeth was ranked number 4 on the initial list ranking, which was indicative of the work that she did within the party membership. So ranked number 4, that's one behind that other person. So yeah, we'll leave it at that, eh?
Let's leave it at that. Okay, awesome. And you know, we've brought up our dear friend Fa'anana Efeso Collins, you know, a leader in our communities. And during his tangi, it's noted that Marama, Davidson and Chloe Swarbrick did not acknowledge the Pasifika Greens, which Fa'anana had worked hard to build with you, Alofa. Why do you think they didn't reach out at that time? And how did that make you feel?
Yeah, well, at that time, James, who was still co-leader, it was James that was still co-leader with Marama. And for reasons laid out in the letter, you know, the MPs and party leadership basically just seemed to be ignoring us, you know, for lack of a better term, you know, and they had been ignoring us for a long time. So, and I can only think, and if you say about me personally, I can only think that it was connected to the crap treatment of my wife, Elizabeth. And yeah, how they treated Elizabeth and it manifesting into guilt, you know. So that's my observation of it all. Because as it was pointed out in the letter, if it was a tangata whenua member of parliament of the Greens, there's no way that Te Rōpū Pounamu wouldn't be the first point of call. This is what the lived experience network, you know, we have lived experience network, lived experience within being Pasifika. So yeah, I was upset. I'm still getting upset about it now. But it wasn't just about me, it was about our rōpū, our Pasifika network, who were mad excited that Efeso, you know, said, yeah, let's do this. You know, we can still hear him saying, let's do this, you know, and so we were, yeah, it was, and it wasn't about, oh, he didn't contact me. It was about him, you know, having the right send-off and the appropriate input from a suitable community person that could advise the Green Party, you know, the Green Party that he was a member of for 5 minutes in terms of, but yeah, so, and we still, to this day, we all often get together and we still heave and we're sad about what could have been.
Absolutely. I'd like to open this up to Vasemaca or Maria if you had anything else to add.
Go Southside.
Campaign team.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was not part of the exec of Pasifika Greens, but our exec was 100% Samoan, you know, with a wealth and capacity to inform culturally, to a caucus who didn't, you know, Efeso's funeral was more to the days, you know. There would have been a lot of cultural guidance that was able to be tapped in that time frame, but the neglect and the lack of communication felt intentional and hurtful. And also, you know, the context for people outside of the party is that, you know, we all turn up for meetings outside of our lives. You know, we all turned up for flowing up to Auckland. This is my studio here. This is where we hosted Green Party meetings. I mean, we invested our life, energy, our time, our family sacrifice so we could do this work. So the insult that was felt was the insult to all of the labor investment that we'd made into this party to grow the Pasifika presence and visibility. So the hurt is not, oh, they didn't email us. It's like, what an insult to all the people we represent, to the labor and investment from our communities, and to us having a seat at this table. But actually, from this action, it felt like the seat at the table was non-existent. That actually all of our work and all of our investment felt like nothing. And that's the insult, you know.
Absolutely. And very important for a party that promotes inclusion and diversity. So you can see these themes coming through. So just another question to you, Vasemaca. Darleen Tana, who was another one who was targeted by media narratives that damaged her reputation in mana. What did you observe about Marama and Chloe's behavior towards Darlene, and how did this impact you as a Green Party member?
Alofa as well, some context for that is that I met Darlene through her campaign, and so she was standing for Tamaki Makaurau when supporting Nana's campaign. We'd turn up to things in South Auckland and Darlene was already there. She was already doing the work. She had the rosette. She was talking to people. She was doing the work to make the Green Party look like us in Southside. You know, in the Mangere markets, at Mangere Arts Centre, walking around the markets, just when Fa'anana and Darleen got together, I would stand back and just say, look at what the Green Party looks like. And so my relationship and understanding and respect for Darleen was seeing that. And that's how I met her. And to learn about her background as an environmental scientist, as an Indigenous knowledge, ecological knowledge plus environmental scientist, I was like, how amazing to have that capacity within the party, that she's turning up to things in Southside. It just felt really exciting to me. So what I observed in the fallout with Darleen is, I mean, like I'm a mum, bullying, we see bullying. If we saw any of our kids, any of our family, any kid being bullied, you see it straight away. That's what it felt like. We were watching Darleen being singled out, being isolated, that she had no one, she was silenced, and the language that they were using around her felt so violent. Right. It was such a form of just slashing her mana, slashing her integrity, when in fact what we have known about the alleged behaviors that have happened, I mean, none of us have seen evidence. We're just taking what was coming from leadership as fact. Yeah. And when you knew Darleen and you saw her work on the ground and you saw her work and her advocacy, which is like from a depth of her career, right, something just didn't feel right. And I personally felt really disgusted in that language being used around an Indigenous woman, around a woman who's like us, had given time and energy and investment to this party. It felt so deeply disrespectful to me, and as if they just wanted to smear her integrity entirely, to build a narrative that we all sort of saw some gaps in,
And I can't help but notice that every time something goes down, there's an act of running to media to quickly defame, the said person that they are attacking. And that's a very, how would I say it? It's not good. And especially when they're in a position, where having access to media is quite easy for them. They could just ring up a journalist and say, I have a story, and they could really, so it's really an abuse of power in that sense. So I'd go to you, Marie. What other kind of hypocrisies did you identify with the co-leaders of the Green Party?
Well, I can't really say hypocrisies, but as you would have read in our open letter, clearly Elizabeth and Darlene have been treated in a different way to Julianne Genter, or Chloe, who for that matter yell and heckle all the time in the house. And we're supposed to adhere to non-violence as one of the 4 pillars. And also in terms of the decision of the co-leaders and the caucus meekly following along, you're supposed to make also adhere to the principle of appropriate decision making. Like how did they make the decisions to target these two tangata whenua women? It's clearly obvious to us that it is very hypocritical in terms of the way that Julianne Gender has been treated so gently compared to the other two.
And what were your thoughts on that, Alofa?
I suppose you touched on it before, Hana. It's there's the Greens profess to do politics differently, and yet they actually don't. That's probably a reflection that I have witnessed, or that's my reflection, and probably the other sisters as well. Their commitment to tiriti is spelled out in the Green Charter, but the attacks on 3 Māori MPs, going back to Metiria, with Elizabeth and now Darlene. And it is the power that the leadership have, the co-leaders have, is that they choose to spin this narrative. And they choose so that it's sort of like a grooming of the membership and the public, that what they say then grooms the public to either idly just go along with what these people are saying, because, they're good people, aren't they? They're good people. I've chosen to put my support behind this party. They can't. But until you're actually there and you see it roll out, you see it roll out. And I use the example of my wife is because she was committed to this party. And the amount of work, if anyone just did a sort of a crass sort of work in motion of Elizabeth prior to her saying, yes, I'd like to run, because she joined in 2015, you will see the amount of work that this woman has done. So just that alone, and then what she achieved in her one term, because she was always said, I'm only in here for 3 years guaranteed, so I've got work to do. So she didn't take it for granted. She didn't think, I'm going to be here next election. There's those, the commitment to non-violence, Marie and Vasemaca said that, how can you say that some MPs' behaviour, we use Darlene, saying that it falls below the bar of what an MP should hold themselves. Meanwhile, the current leadership, i.e., the leaders, can go out and verbally attack that level of violence, but no one seems to investigate that or hold that. And the example that Marie used with Julianne Genter, slap on the wrist, as you, no stand down of portfolios, no invest, but yeah.
So as you are all sharing these experiences, I'm also picking up on a few other things. So the attitudes that were received, bullying, gatekeeping, there's favoritism as the treatment of Julianne and compared to the Elizabeth and also other members. So how did that affect the spirit of the party? Because I'm sure it would have, these things are happening and party members and supporters and volunteers are you can't hide this kind of feeling within a party. How was it for you all? I'll start with you, Vasemaca.
Well, for a lot of people, your experience of the party, if you're a member, is that you might go to a branch meeting, and generally a branch meet. So these are all, geographically different parts of Aotearoa have got different branches, and so you rock up to a meeting, and you meet the other people who are like, yeah, I'm into the Greens too. My experience is that in branch meetings, and the reason we have lived experience networks is because the branch meetings are pretty heavily dominated by an older generation of Pākehā, largely, kind of homeowning a little bit more privileged class than, me. And so I didn't expect that when I turned up to a South Auckland branch meeting, but that's exactly what it was. I'm giving you this context because when I think about the culture of the party those branch meetings is the party. You know, the culture of the Green Party is exactly what I've encountered in those branch meetings, which is, I mean, I said to our team, you know, in Southside, I've been working here for 20 plus years, whereby you go to meetings in South Auckland where Māori and Pacific people are in charge. We have agency. My daughter goes to a school which has Māori and Pacific women at governance, management, you know, teaching all the way through. So it's normal for me to have Māori and Pacific people at the table, at the top of the table. What's unusual for me is to go to a meeting where there's still where we feel like a minority, and that there's a very Eurocentric, dominant kind of energy in that room. So, I mean, it's, you know, we talk about it amongst ourselves as brown people, but like, we know what that feels like to be in those rooms where there's a lot being said and unsaid or not said, and we sort of have to code switch and make people feel comfortable and not feel too intimidating. And you know, I ain't here for that. We're not, you know, the reason we have the lived experience networks, which is architecture within the party that was, we can thank people like Elizabeth Kerekere for actually implementing, is to create safe spaces where minority groups like Pasifika, Maori, Rainbow can come together in environments where we can actually have open and frank talanoa, because the branch environments, which is really the party environment, doesn't really enable that. I've sort of talked around the issue a bit, but does anyone else want to comment?
You hit it on the head.
Yeah,
I've forgotten the question too, Hana, sorry.
no, that you answered it perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, just highlighting the culture of what it was like when these things were happening, because you know, like I had mentioned before, you can't hide that spirit kind of carries through the party. So you've definitely shared how you felt, and thank you for sharing that experience with us.
There's also, if I can chip in here, there's also part of the culture of the Greens is because, again, we're supposed to be committed to the honouring of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. However, and I think there is an acknowledgement, sort of, from the branches, from the grassroots, that they do need training, but time and time again, they don't listen. Like tangata whenua up, well, probably mana whenua up in Taitokerau have advised and advised again the branch as to the unfitness of the candidates, that tangata whenua candidates that they want to run, and they just didn't listen to the advice. And now the green-backed Maori local elected members are playing up, and it's like, why didn't you listen to the tangata whenua advisors? And just the way, I think some branches vary throughout the motu as to how they look after people, but our young Pasifika volunteers who come, they're just treated like crap. They're not looked after, they're not thanked, they're not, you know, accommodation it's all up to them to arrange all that stuff. And so the party's got a lot of work to do in terms of actually really walking its talk about, you know, caring for your people. And it's you kind of assume that there's an assumption, I think, that Pasifika and tangata whenua don't have ecological wisdom at the forefront. And as you know, Efeso was talking about with Vasemaca and them, talking about, yes, we have our own ecological wisdom that has been for centuries. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Good luck to them.
And yourself, Alofa?
Yeah, no, I think the sisters have hit it on the head. Really, yeah, lots of work to do. And we can only hope that the work can be done. You know, the last AGM, the AGM before that didn't give me much hope in regards to the actual party leadership actually living the values. you know, and I really hope that the spotlight is turned on them in terms of their own behaviour. It's like, how are you actually living the values of the party? So, yeah.
Exactly. And I applaud you all so much for standing strong on your Pasifika, values. That's very admirable. But which brings me to a question, because, if they're not taking the advice of Maori and Pasifika people to help grow the party, cultural integrity is highly valued in amongst Pasifika culture. So did you guys ever feel pressured, to compromise your cultural values to elevate or advance in the party? Was that kind of like something that you felt with your experience with the Green Party? I'll start with you, Alofa.
Yeah, I don't know about pressure. I think the only pressure I had, and pressure with love, was from Marie and Elizabeth. Spoken like a true youngest of the family. But as you heard from our intros, Hana, we all held leadership positions within the party. And I think that it didn't take people long to know that you know who they were dealing with, and you actually couldn't put pressure on any of us to do things that went against our own cultural values. Look where we ended up. It's like we've basically said, yeah, nah, we've given you opportunity time and time and time again to do better, and you still haven't done better. So yeah, I think it was more like, say, for the likes of Elizabeth, and I have that personal experience because I see how my wife was treated when she became an elected member. And I remember what she said was that she knew going into that place, there was a level of toxicity, or that word, she didn't go in blindly. But one of her reflections was she didn't realise that the biggest challenge that she would have had to face was within her own caucus. And that really became even more apparent come election and list ranking. Me being so naive, when she got number 4, we were so excited. We didn't think that was going to be the case. And I said, oh, wow. When she came back, I was going, were people were your mates in the party, other MPs and on that floor, were they happy? And she said it was like tumbleweed. No one spoke of it. It was like, and I went, and there you go. It's like you should be celebrating it's like, wow, from number 9 to number 4. But yeah, so that's me.
What about yourself, Vasemaca?
I think we're always compromising our cultural integrity when we have to make Pākehā feel comfortable. And we had to do that so much in this party. And I lent so hard on Fa'anana because he was such an amazing buffer that he, to be, crass, like white women loved him because he turned into someone who was non-threatening. I mean, I watched him physically drop his shoulders and lower his height, so that so you could code switch so that Pākehā would feel comfortable. And he talked about this in his mayoral election campaign, is that, a tall brown man in a hoodie was the most feared thing that people thought about in Auckland. And so I think we're always having to compromise when we can't bring our full selves to the table, because what we're accommodating for is prejudicial views of the way that we look and what we represent. I mean, one thing we brought up in the letter is the trope of the angry brown woman. Throughout my career, this has been used against me, weaponized against me. I'm a 5'11" big Fijian woman. If I make one Pākehā feel unsafe, it's like, she's so big and scary. It's like, too easy, So we cultivate environments where we can bring our whole selves to the table. And I think that becomes a threat sometimes.
Mm. And what about yourself, Marie?
I think the sisters have done a good job of answering. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So I understand, from your answers and from this talanoa that you guys strongly stand on your values. And even while strongly standing on your values, you have accommodated to the needs of Palangi people, to make them feel comfortable. So this brings me to a question that, if you don't believe that Pacific people should have to compromise, their values and their cultural integrity, the harsh reality is most of the parties that are leading are Palangi parties. So my question to you is, what would your solutions be? How could we move forward together as Pasifika people and making a staple and, achieving the outcomes of representation? I'll start off with you, Marie.
Well, unfortunately, with the exception of Te Pāti Māori, the political parties are as racist AF. So if you really want to be in a create a space or be in a space, you have to create your own party. That's ultimately my response.
Mm.
And I know it's a lot of work and it will take amazing commitment, but yeah.
Mm.
And again, as Alofa said earlier, these political parties are only a vehicle. They're only a vehicle for achieving the vision of what we want to see for honouring Te Titiri o Waitangi, because if that happens, that means automatically that there will be vast improvement in the lives and whānau and communities of Pasifika throughout the motu. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Marie. It does. That sounds like a huge goal, but I know, with, women as yourself, I know it's not impossible. It's definitely possible. It's just going to take a lot of hard work and grit, and I'm sure it'll be more rewarding. I also support, things that are led by Pasifika and Maori people as well. It's a lot easier to attain the outcomes that we're wanting to achieve. What about yourself, Vasemaca?
Yeah, I think that's really good points. And I think what our experience illustrates is that it's very hard to retrofit a decolonial agenda inside a Pākehā system without a real commitment to transformational change. And I think about the leaders who've been in the Green Party who've really made me feel like that was possible was Materia, it was Elizabeth, and it was Efeso. And so when I think about actually that kind of leadership, the natural alignment is with tangata whenua. And so I look at things like the growing, the growing energy in this country of unity, unification, of Māori gusto and commitment, dedication, and it's in the language, it's in everything. The strength of what we're witnessing right now is phenomenal, and that gives me excitement. Things like the invitation from the Kingitanga for Tangata Moana to turn up on the 20th of August to talk about allyship. Our natural allyship is with tangata whenua, and so I don't know what that looks like. I mean, my experiences have been with the Labour Party, which had a lot of brown representation, then with the Green Party. So I'm like Marie, is just like actually the power of being politically engaged doesn't happen inside those vehicles. It happens outside of them. And so it's definitely about just finding like-minded people, standing up, showing up, turning up, tautoko to, well, from my point of view, it's like anything that Māori need, we put our weight behind. And that's sort of where my energy is now.
And I think that's a very important point that you bring, Vasemaca, because for people like myself, when I was at a younger age and entered politics, I was often told you can never make it unless you join one of the major parties. and that's the only way you can, you know, progress or bring what you want to achieve. So it's very encouraging to find women who believe in us, believe in our own people to create their own solutions. Alofa, what were your thoughts on that?
I'll leave it with Marie and Vacemaca. Like I said earlier, you know, my political sort of life was pretty non-existent, and you know, and it's only because I've been around my wife and like-minded people with Marie and Vacemaca. So what they said, I just want to echo that and not lose their message.
Thank you so much, Alofa. And you know, there will always be Pasifika people going into national labor, you know, these major parties. What would your, you know, what do you think these major parties can do so that Pasifika people can participate fairly? Besides not be racist.
Well, personally, I think they're just ticking boxes.
Yeah.
They don't really care about the lived experience and the suffering of over decades of our people. So they're just ticking their boxes. And personally, my parents here in Otipoti used to support the Labour Party and get out on scrutineering. I used to go with Dad, in particular, and Mum, and go scrutineering on election day, on polling day. And over the years, well, Dad, I don't know about Eti, but Dad switched to New Zealand first once he'd retired because of the gold card. So I don't, you know, they didn't really care about our people as volunteers. That they didn't do enough to encourage them to stay. And I haven't, frankly, been interested in Labour since Rogernomics. You know, I think they're dogs. They're treasonous and traitorous to the people. Sold us out, and we're still suffering 40 years later. That's political parties.
What about your self, Vacemaca?
What was the question again? I was just
what do political parties need to do to make sure Pasifika people can participate fairly?
I think, you know, the onus really is on Pākehā in this country to do a lot of work around cultural competencies. We know as non-white people what it takes to code switch and move into different environments, even change the tone of our voices, drop our shoulders, you know. We are skilled in intercultural communication. We are not on the same level as Pākehā. And this is why where the rub comes in, is that we feel like we're doing a lot of work to accommodate for Pākehā norms and a Pākehā sense of security. I mean, this is just, we are a young country, but and my mother is a Pākehā woman, and I just know how much, you know, as culture shifts, a lot of the onus that she has to come on to in terms of Aotearoa's maturity as a nation, culturally, is the onus is on Pākehā to do a lot of the hard work of understanding that transformational change is going to be uncomfortable. There is discomfort in us recognizing the inequalities of the past that created the environment of why we are where we are. But that radical shift in thinking, which a lot of us have had the privilege, you know, us three sitting here, we've been around radical thinkers and like people who actually say things don't need to be like this. Like, I know a lot of people who are just, you know, the media is truth, they watch the news, TVNZ is culture, you know, like there's a lot of people, the education, the media landscape, everything has cultivated a sense of comfort for Pākehā New Zealanders. So I think the onus is actually not only on the individual, but on the whole system. I mean, we're seeing it in education, like the way my daughter's grown up singing waiata and doing karakia at the beginning of the day. Like, this is transformation that's happening in our children. It's the elders that need to also do work. And that's the work that we witnessed, like I witnessed in the branch meetings of the Green Party, I witnessed in the policy conference that I went to earlier this year, that the onus really is on certain generations of Pākehā who need to do a lot of work to sort of understand how to live and move with the rate of evolution that's happening in this country. You know, there's a real pushback. We had after Jacinda Ardern, we now get this coalition. So there's always swings, you know. But in this swing and within this tension, I think there is an onus actually on Pākehā New Zealand people and culture to have good hard looks at how they what's their role in cultivating safe spaces for other people to engage effectively.
Yeah.
And yourself, Alofa?
Yeah, all of that. And I suppose it's at its most simple level is like just hand the mic over. We have Pasifika leadership. We have wisdom. Like we said, you know, we get stuff done, and it's more than just a tick box. If you truly, you know, want this transformational change, is actually lean in to the experience and the skills and expertise that is out there. You know, it's and what is your party doing to truly get that engagement and to value it? See, the Green Party say, you know, and they have the lived experience networks, awesome. But then it's like, that's the tick box, that's it. We've given you a little space for you to hang out and be with your sisters and that. But when it comes to AGM, you know, it's that thing. Is like, what does it truly look like? Do you really want a membership that does have a voice, or are you, and I'm saying this to the leadership, or are you just really ticking boxes, which then makes you a little, you know, even worse than our other political parties, because you say you do better, but you do not. And it's that whole thing, you know, when you know more, do better, as opposed to, you know, just trying to hide things and spin things and lies. I'll say it, I'll call it out, and just manufacturing lies for people to basically, I'm not going to dig too hard to see whether that's truth. I'm just going to believe it. And that's what they rely on.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that, you know, we know our worth. We know that we bring cultural capital. And what feels the most rotten is when our cultural capital is used without us. You know? And that's what I guess, you know, for me, when we mention Fa'anana's name in our letter, it's that what we witnessed after the funeral and
during.
Yeah, but the way this party used his mana to elevate a political cause, it felt so violent and so shameless. And that's when I talk about cultural capital and the misuse of our cultural capital. That was evidenced in that week. And the thing is like, we saw it from the inside, but our people saw it from the outside. We saw it.
Yes.
We saw it in the performativeness of how the Green Party maneuvered around his death. And from the last week of conversations I've had with my community, we all could see it. You know, our letter became just evidence for what a lot of people could already see. And so we just, it's not okay. It's not okay in 2024. And we didn't lose Fa'anana for this, you know?
Hard out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I can tell just by your sharing your lived experiences how much this has impacted you all and how important this is. But I'd just like to applaud you all that your work will not go unnoticed, and there will be blessings that will come from it. And hopefully that will manifest within our youth. So my last question that I'd like to ask to you all is, what is your words of encouragement, your word of advice to Pasifika and Maori youth who are wanting to enter politics and may face these kinds of challenges? I'll start off with you, Marie.
O le ala, the path, I le pule to leadership, o le tautua is service. So if you want to be in those positions of leadership, once you get to those positions, never stop doing your service. And by your work you shall be known. And find a great group of colleagues and mentors and hold yourself accountable to them, because when you go in there, wherever you go, to Auckland Council or the community boards or Parliament, you are not an individual. You are the voice piece for your people. So be really clear about your motivations. You're not going in there to advance yourself or personal prestige. You're going there to serve. So as Fa'anana said, I haven't come here to learn. I've done that. I've come here to help.
Mm.
And ia loto tele, big strength to anyone who wants to put themselves up for that. It's hard. And it's sometimes thankless.
Thank you for that, Marie. And yourself, Alofa.
Yeah, all that. I think, these challenges that young people are challenges that young people might face in school, job, or any non-Pasifika environment or non-Māori space that they're in. And pretty much what Marie said is figure out the things that you care about, find some mates, start the work. And, we mention it, the political machine, party or whatever, it's a vehicle if that's where you'll end up. But you have to, do the work, it's not going, oh, I want to go into Parliament. It's like your work will speak for itself. And I just look at the work that these ladies do and continue to do. And many, many other people in Pasifika peeps, I take my hat off. This podcast, amazing. This is the talanoa that is important for not just young people to hear, but my generation as well, because there's still people of my generation that vote blindly, if they are voters at all, that vote blindly just because it's habit, it's habit. And one of the things that I got excited about, and so did Elizabeth, was that we wanted to tap in about the values around the Green Party is to actually give our people an alternative, because we all have different political views and stuff. And you mentioned about we're going to have Pasifika and Maori people that join, right-wing parties for whatever it is. But the thing that Elizabeth and Fa'anana were really good at was building those relationships and finding common ground.
Yeah.
And then working for the greater good. And that's the stuff that you don't see on TV and Parliament TV, is the stuff that goes behind the scenes in terms of building those relationships cross-party, and so that's the stuff. And I think that's where real leadership, is in terms of how can I work with this party that I may not agree with, but we've got to find some common ground. So it's like just get the work done. And I know we've got some exciting, powerful, fantastic young people, that want to do this mahi.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Alofa. And Vasemaca.
I think it's really the emphasis on service is so important, that it's showing up, turning up. We all know, we all talk about we're busy. Being busy is just like it's not a priority, Make showing up a priority, turning up for kaupapa, bodies on the ground. Yes, it's cool to like turn up to Zooms and stuff, but when you turn up physically, it means so much. And so I would say definitely understand what your values are and don't compromise them. Align with people who share your values, who understand the principles that drive us as Pasifika people, and where they are aligned with other people. I mean, it's the reason that I gave so much of my energy to Fa'anana's campaign and the kaupapa. And, you know, me and my daughter did a pilgrimage down to Wellington to watch his maiden speech, you know, because I was saying to the ladies, we were so broke that week, but it was like, you just turn up, show up, because watching that speech now, I know that it was totally, I'll never regret turning up for that day, you know. But I also want to really emphasize that it's about learning from our elders, because there are people who, you know, all time is circular, you know, and things repeat themselves. We've seen what we've experienced in the Green Party. We've seen things happen before. This is why we've arrived at this conclusion. It's like, Darleen, Elizabeth, Materia. So you only learn about those lived experiences of the past by talking to people who were there.
Yeah.
So absolutely listening to elders in the space, and read books. It's sort of like, it's one thing to get, you know, your news from like Instagram and stuff, but there's so much to be said for reading widely, you know. And I told that to myself as well, because you know, sometimes I won't finish books and read the first chapter, but I would always say read widely, befriend elders, show up, and know that yeah, absolutely, the message is that political parties are only a vehicle. Fa'anana showed us that, you know, that he did his work in Labour Party, he did his work on the local board, he did the work in the council of Auckland Council as a councillor, and then he stepped into and put his neck out there to be the mayor. You know, that's leadership that I put my whole weight behind, you know. So find those people and people who recognize people like that, because that's the network you want to be part of, for sure.
100, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Vasemaca. Oh, that was such a lovely round of advice. You know, join politics because you want to serve, not because you want a fancy seat in Parliament. Know how to connect with everyone, find a common interest, and make sure that you're working together for a common goal. And you know, it's so important for our youth to take this on. But thank you all so much for coming on to Breaking Waves and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Thank you for sharing your experiences, and most of all for trusting myself and my team to deliver this talanoa, because, you know, I do understand you have received other media requests, which you have all respectfully declined. And thank you so much. This was such a lovely episode for me to facilitate. And I just want to thank you all for that. Whawhetai lava mole alofa, whawhetai lava mole angalilei, and I wish you all well on your journey moving forward. I know you have big things coming your way, you know, with the spirits that I'm able to connect with just through the Zoom. It's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Whawhetai lava. Thank you.